The woman we're going to be talking about today had a crazy life story. She fought Nazis, she headlined a show in Vegas with her sisters, she was a countess at one point, and she had six husbands. Let me introduce you to Magda Gabor. Hi, my name is Bibi. This is my channel where I talk about the divas, the rebels, the weirdos, and everybody else who makes this life just a little bit more interesting. They are not always perfect, but they are always iconic, and today is no exception. Also, this is a new channel, so if you feel like stopping by and saying hi, it is much appreciated. Let's get into it. Magda Gabor was born to Vilmos and Jolie Gabor in Budapest, Hungary around 1917. Vilmos was like an older military type dude, and Jolie was young and had aspirations of becoming an actress. Her aspirations were so great that just 6 months into the marriage, she tries to propose a divorce to Vilmos so she can go follow her dream. And he actually agrees. But this plan gets put on pause because they find out that she's actually pregnant with Magda at this time. Both Vilmos and Jolie both also have Jewish ancestry, which becomes relevant later on. Even if this was kind of a rocky start, the marriage between Vilmos and Jolie lasts another 22 years, and they have two more daughters, Zaza and Eva Gabor, who are both more famous than Magda. You might know Eva Gabor as the voice of the mom cat in the Aristocats. Their early childhood, Jolie insisted on sending them all to finishing school. She insisted that they swim, that they speak languages, that they play the piano, and she had really grand visions for all of her daughters. She wanted them to marry princes or kings or prime ministers, and she wanted them to be fine actresses. To be fair, Zaza and Ava got more of the actress push than Magda did, but she definitely got the push to marry into high society and that kind of thing. So descriptions of Magda around this time are that she is the most regal of the three sisters. She's born a lady and always daydreaming. So maybe it makes sense that when she gets married in 1937, she does get married to a count. And this is Count Jan Bachowski of Warsaw, and he is a full on aristocrat. This man has a castle in the Hungarian forest. So, of course, Magda goes to live with him in this castle, and that's all very grand, but they are actually a little bit broke because they're one of those aristocrats who have fallen on hard times recently. But she still gets to live in a castle, so it's not all bad. They lived like this for several years, but trouble is brewing in Europe. At one point, one of Zaza's husbands, who is a Turkish ambassador, actually warns the family to get out, and Zaza herself goes to Turkey. Ava has gone to America at this point, so it's just Magda and her parents and extended family who are in Hungary when the war breaks out. Magda's husband, Jan Bicholski, actually goes to join the Royal Air Force and becomes a RAF pilot during the war, and he dies in combat. She, on the other hand, decides to join the Hungarian underground. Her time in the Hungarian underground is characterized by a relationship with Carlos de Sampaio. He is a Portuguese diplomat. It's unclear if they had a romantic relationship or just a very close working relationship. So the types of things that Magda did in the resistance, sometimes she drove trucks to smuggle plainclothes to prisoners of war. She also allegedly helped break ciphers with Carlos de Sampaio. She spoke 12 languages, so Magda was pretty smart. We also know that Carlos de Sampaio trusted her a ton because he entrusts her with seven glass vials. And what is in these glass vials? Apparently, Carlos has a heart condition, and he tells her if she ever finds him and he's passed out on the floor somewhere, she needs to administer to him the contents of one of these vials within 2 minutes, or he will die. Carlos Sampaio is actually credited with saving 1,000 Jews during his time in Hungary, and he later receives recognition for this work. So things are going on, but honestly, the war is getting worse. Now the Russians have also reached Hungary. According to Jolie, it's pretty terrible where on one half of the city you have Germans lining up Jews to murder them, and the other half of the city you have Russians lining up Germans to execute them. Germans being Nazi, of course, in this situation. Carlos is very worried about Magda at this point because he is expecting her name to come up on a list any day now because of her work with the underground. He uses all of his influence to kind of get early notice on who might be on these lists. And sure enough, one day Magda comes up. He sends a car for her immediately to get her to a Portuguese safe house. And she has to do some convincing to get her mom out of the apartment, but she is able to get her mom and dad and extended family to the safe house as well. So they make it to the safe house and they're in hiding there. And one day, a bunch of quote unquote terrorists who have their faces covered storm in and rob the place. And it's really traumatic and all of that. And not even 5 minutes after the terrorists, in quotes, leave, the Gestapo shows up. And the Gestapo, according to Jolie, she notices a similar scuff mark on the boot of the Gestapo that was just on the quote unquote terrorists who just came and raided the place. So it seems like it's the same group of people that just traumatized them by robbing them are now showing up on the pretense of investigating a robbery or complaint. Once they have entered the villa, they decide they're going to take Magda and her family in for questioning, which really sounds bleak. As they're leaving, Magda happens to look inside a room and see Carlos de Sampaio is on the floor, passed out. And she doesn't know what's happened for a second, but then she remembers the vials and realizes right now is the time that she has to administer his medicine or he's going to die. When she explains this to the officers, they're kind of scared of potentially letting a Portuguese diplomat die because Portugal's a neutral country in the war. So they allow her to give him his medicine, and he wakes up. And luckily for everybody involved, even after this event, he's pretty sharp and realizes what's going on. He insists on accompanying Magda and her family down to the police station where they are questioned, and just barely by kind of waving his Portuguese government card in everybody's faces and saying that they're all Portuguese citizens, he's able to extract them from that situation just this once. He realizes that their days are numbered and he smuggles Magda out in a truck where she's hiding beneath like the flat of the truck, and the truck's plastered with like Portuguese flags to avoid it getting stopped. So Magda is able to make it safely to Lisbon at this point while her parents are still stuck in Hungary. The Portuguese are able to get her parents safely into Switzerland. Her extended family stays behind, and unfortunately, they're killed when the Americans drop some bombs in Budapest and it hits the safe house that they were in. Once Jolie and Vilmos reach Switzerland, they have some problems. And Jolie and Vilmos are divorced at this point. Not that it matters that much to the story, but it's significant. The problem that they have in Switzerland is the Swiss don't know whether or not they are Nazis or fleeing Nazis. So they decide to just kind of make things a bit difficult. To make things worse, while Jolie had the foresight to withdraw 80,000 pingos, whatever, it's the name of the Hungarian currency at the time. But she withdraws 80K and she expects this to be significant as it was in pre-war times. But the pingo has gone to nothing essentially, and her 80K can buy like 3 chickens. So they're broke, they have no money, they don't know what to do. And then they get a call from an Andre Zalabondi. So what has kind of happened in the background is Magda, anticipating her parents' difficulties, has gotten the help of a Spanish man who was once an admirer of her mother early on in their life, and he is able to send them $5,000, which is worth a lot more than her 80,000 pangos, and they're able to get out of Switzerland, and eventually they meet him at the Spanish border. And when he shows up to the Spanish border, he brings a rose and a box of chocolates for Jolie, which just must have been the most awkward encounter ever with her ex husband standing right next to her. And she had kind of rebuffed his advances all those years ago. But he does help them. They get through Spain, and for some reason, this Andres Alabondi guy is not allowed to enter Portugal, so he can't follow them into Portugal, but they make it safely to Portugal where they reconnect with Magda. Now, it's worth noting that Andre didn't do this all out of the goodness of his heart. Magda's younger sister, Zaza, happens to be married to Conrad Hilton of the Hilton Hotel Empire. So later on, when the Madrid Hilton gets built, it gets built on Zalabondi land. So he made out okay, even if he didn't get to romance Jolie. So at this time, Zaza and Ava are both in the United States As I mentioned before, Zaza has long left her Turkish ambassador husband and is now on to her Hilton husband. Ava is probably on her second or third husband also, but they are all in the United States. Jolie wants to go to America and join the other two. Magda goes with her. Vilmos returns to Budapest, which, falls under communist rule, so we don't really get updates for him in the future. What Jolie, Magda, Ava, and Zaza experience is kind of like a sauced up version of the American dream. Somehow, Zaza has managed to make a career out of her own personality. Ava is studying to be an actress and starting to land more major roles and that kind of a thing. Jolie opened some jewelry shops in New York, and then they expand to, I think, like Florida and some other places. And she was a jeweler at one point back in Hungary too. So she has experience with this, and it's all going well. Magda is helping her with the shops. At one point, they get all four Gabors, so the mother and the three daughters, onto Vegas. And Ava later says that the show was horrible. They're like singing and dancing and kind of doing little sketches and stuff, but it sounds fun. And interestingly, Magda said to be the highlight of this show because the general public was already so familiar with Ava and with Zaza. They were intrigued by this regal, more like shrouded in mystique, like older Gabor sister that was Magda. So, notably, the other major act in Vegas at the time was Marlena Dietrich, who Ava actually had a relationship with at one point. So, I thought that was another interesting fun fact. So, where are we in the Magda story? We've got the fighting Nazis, we've got the Countess being the Countess de Bykowski of Warsaw, which she actually still uses that title. We've got the headlining in Vegas. Now we need the six husbands. And so this is not going to take very long. Some of them are more relevant than others. We got the first one, Count Jan de Bukowski, out of the way. The second one is going to be playwright William M. Rankin. Nothing that interesting happens between them. It just seems like they got together for a while, they got bored of each other, they separated. It's fine. Then there is third, her lawyer, who she marries, Sydney Warren. Now, the only thing we really know about what went wrong in this marriage is one day Jolie shows up to the building. Magda is angry. All of Sydney's stuff is all over the front of the building, and she's locked the door, and she has called somebody to come and change the locks, permanently locking him out. At first, Jolie said that she felt bad for Sydney and approached Magda to kind of reason with her. But after Magda told her what had happened, she 100% agreed with her decision and pretty much fuck that guy. So who knows? The third husband, or our fourth husband, Tony Gallucci. So she's actually engaged to Tony Gallucci over a year before they actually get married. 2 days after they're engaged, this man takes her little poodle for a walk. He's taken the little poodle for a walk and he doesn't come back. She opens the door and her poodle's there, crying and all of that. And she just knows that Tony's made the decision to leave her, which is crazy because that's not where my mind would have went. I would have thought, oh no, something happened to my fiance. But Magda's instinct is right. Tony's actually reconnected with an old love of his from Italy and they get married. The marriage lasts like a year, but this is totally devastating for Magda at the time. She actually tries to overdose on barbiturates, but she doesn't have enough for it to have a health impact on her. Her mother comes and takes care of her, and she's just really broken up by it. But like I said, Tony's marriage to the other woman lasts like a year, and he and Magda reconnect at a party, and they do eventually get married. They describe it as being a great marriage and one that Magda was very happy in until the mid 1960s, where Magda suffers a debilitating stroke where she's just paralyzed, she can't speak. And while she's in recovery for this, just clawing back word after word, Tony dies because apparently he had had cancer. So now Magda is only up to about 24 words of vocabulary that she's able to speak. And she's immediately thrown into a legal battle with Tony's family for her share of the estate. But Magda does not let that stop her. She does not let the death of her favorite husband stop her. She's reading law books by herself, and when she goes with her attorneys to negotiate, they show her the original settlement, and all she says is fight. And that's enough. They fight. she wins her fair share. So good for her. She has two more husbands after this. One, notably, is actually the ex husband of her sister Zaza. And this is weird because Zaza actually proposes it. It's not like a romantic thing, really. It seems like they just feel like this is Zaza's favorite ex husband, who's essentially part of the family, but Zaza feels like she can't be married to him. She's not good for him, but both Magda and him have had strokes. So maybe they have something in common. It doesn't really work out. Like within a year, they're separated and then divorced. And she has one more husband after this who kind of similar. They're only together for about a year and then they're separated and divorced. And most of the time, she's just enjoying her life with like her mother and her sisters. They're all very close still. She has started to slow down a bit and has entrenched herself in the glamorous Palm Springs mid century lifestyle. And the years go by, and Magda eventually dies June 20th, 1997, of kidney failure at the age of 81, which sounds like it's a ripe old age, except for the fact that her mother died only 2 months previously at the age of like 109. So Jolie lived a really long time. That is the story of the life of Magda Gabor. Hopefully, it was interesting and